The content of this episode may not be suitable for some audiences. Listener's discretion is advised. Welcome to the place of rest, where our aim is to give you language that helps you displace the growing confusion, chaos, and dis-ease of our times. My name is Jonathan Boyce, and it's my pleasure to bring to you today's episode. Virginia and U.S. Marine veteran and licensed therapist Juan Sanabria discuss his journey to helping first responders learn about trauma. We hope you enjoy today's conversation.
Juan, what a joy to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Of course, I'm happy to be here.
Jonathan and I have been expanding on this concept of an invisible string that we share, we experience, we intuitively know is there. But in the busyness, craziness, complexities of life, we silence it, we ignore it, we neglect it more often than not. And your story is so phenomenal. I know you served in the Marines for over 10 years, 2 tours of duty in Iraq. Thank you so much for your service.
Of course.
And you embody everything that R.E.S.T strives to communicate. And it's such an honor to have you as our clinical therapist, our lead therapist, and a licensed peer support specialist for our first responders. So I just love you from the bottom of my heart. And I am so thankful you are on our team. Thank you for joining me today. I'd like everyone to have context for everything Jonathan and I tried to grasp and explain and communicate and discuss in terms of this invisible string. So tell us your story.
Well, thank you for such a humbling and heartfelt introduction. You know, it's funny because we have briefly talked about, because you had mentioned it and I talked about the inner nerd in me and like multiple universes and string theory. And like we kind of talked about it briefly in the office. And, it's that invisible string that drew me here because as you hear my story here in a minute, it didn't matter what I tried to do or what I wanted or thought that I needed. In God's plan, he was pulling me in his own direction the whole way. And that's kind of like how he brought us together. And it's incredibly beautiful. It's been quite the blessing to have found rest, especially the way that I found rest or that we found each other. The grandiosity and complexity of God's plan to unite us. I mean, I couldn't have formulated it any better. Like everything happened the way that it was supposed to happen according to his plan in order for us to cross paths because I couldn't have tried to find you and God just had us cross paths. And so a little bit about myself. So Juan Diego Sanabria, I wasn't actually born in the United States. I was born in Managua, Nicaragua, in the early 80s amongst its civil war, with the Contras and the Sandinistas and civil uprising. And, America had its little bit in there and the CIA and money and, drug laundering and weapons and all that stuff. But during this time, my father was what would be the equivalent of like a CPA here in the United States for the government. He would just run the finances and do auditing on corporations and things like that. So when there was the uprising happening, they had this either you're with us or against us mentality. So the Sandinistas took him as a political prisoner. Then he was imprisoned and tortured for years, right? He, through the grace of God and through his unwavering faith of just praying every day, he was one of the few that made it out alive. And we fled Nicaragua and were able to seek and gain political asylum here in the United States. So our whole family uprooted when we came to America. And so though I was born there, America's been my home It gave me everything, and credit to my parents for just really pulling us together, like by the bootstraps and providing for us. So as a kid, like I shared earlier, like math and physics and science is like just been my thing, real nerd about it. And growing up, because we had the fortune of being in Southern California, we had downtown LA, huge buildings. And I used to marvel at buildings and think like, God, that's amazing. Like look at what you blessed us with the ability to, like, we looked at gravity and we're like, hold on, watch this, and built these structures that literally touch the clouds and the skies. And I was so fascinated by them. And I was like, someday I want to be a part of something like this. So as you fast forward to high school, my parents like really pushing me to do something with my life and go to college and find something. They had come up with this agreement where, like, all right, if you finish high school well, like, don't drag your grades the way you have been, apply yourself and finish well, go to any college. We'll send you to New York for a couple of weeks with your uncle, and you can go and see the Twin Towers for yourself, spend some time. Because you have to understand, back then, New York's Twin Towers and the World Trade Center, they were the largest man-made objects in the entire world. So I was like, deal, easy. School's easy. I just wasn't really applying myself. So I finished school, and then, if you recall, in September of 2001, 9/11 hits. And we lost the towers and, the strike on the Pentagon, all these things happened. And I just remember being like, I can't believe this happened. And I can't believe someone would do this to my home. So I immediately went over to the Marine Corps Recruiting Center, and I said, like, I gotta go. I have to do something because someone's wronged my country and I have to defend her. So next thing I knew, I'm standing on those yellow footprints. I go through boot camp here at MCRD San Diego. I'm graduating. I go through training. I hit my unit. And next thing I know, I'm in Fallujah, Iraq with my fellow Marines. And, it was quite the experience. Met some of the most amazing, brave, funny people that God, I think, could ever have put on this earth. The camaraderie and the bond that we formed. And I understand now, years separated and lots of schooling later, it's what we refer to as trauma bonding. But it was just an experience that is unrivaled and unmatched. There's just something about the brotherhood that we formed that, thankfully, we still keep in touch to this day. In my tours of Fallujah and Ramadi, Iraq, had some close calls, and then I ended up getting out of the Marine Corps. I said, okay, cool. Had some close calls, and I was like, you know what, I better not press my luck. So I get out, start working in the civilian fields. I end up becoming an operations manager for a distribution center for Walmart. Huge account, huge warehouse, hundreds of people under my leadership, and life is going good. And then I get a phone call from one of my fellow Marines. His name's Matthew Shigakawa. He hits me up. I had just shut down and finished my reports. And, hey, what's up, Matt? And he's like, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, nothing, just hanging out, wrapping up work, and about to go home. And he goes, are you sitting down? And I was like, well, no, I was about to head home, but should I be? And he goes, did you hear about Domhart? And then I'm like, no, what happened with that crazy, dude? And he goes, Domhart passed away. And to put into context, William Domhart III, he was my driver in the Marine Corps. He was way too tall to be a driver, but that's what he wanted to be. Waste of height because he didn't enjoy or want to play basketball. And I always tried to get him to play basketball with us in the Marine Corps when we were stateside, and just wasn't his thing. He was just too tall for the sake of being tall. But he was an outstanding Marine and an incredible friend. And so it really kind of like messed me up hearing he had died. So there's a pause, and then I ask Matthew, and I'm like, well, of course, the next question, logical question was like, well, how did he die? And then Shigakawa says he committed suicide. And there was this, like, the string that we talk about, I felt it was like snap and recoil. It was the weirdest physiological feeling. It's just this punch. And I remember feeling like, okay, the pause was instantaneous in my head, but I guess it was so long that Matthew thought we had got disconnected, and I hear him like, hello? Hey, are you there? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm here. Sorry. Okay. That sucks. So I immediately reach out to all the dudes from our unit. We have this memorial service in his honor. We built a shadow box. We all showed up, threw a few beers back for him. This is back when I used to drink, shared stories about him, and then mailed his family on behalf of all of us a nice little shadow box that we put together. So that's all we had. So that happens and life goes on. And I never really kind of like felt good or the same after that. Slowly things started manifesting in me that I had never really gotten help with. And it's funny because I remember post-separation from the Marine Corps, like a lot of people in my life would be like, there's something different about you. You're a little different. And I would be like, there's absolutely nothing different about me. I'm the same person. I'm the same clown, inappropriate jokes, never take anything serious. They're like, yeah, no, you're still that, but there's just something different about you. And I remember being like, nah, you're wrong. And as more people started telling me, you're wrong, and you're wrong, and everyone around me was wrong, even though they all kind of noticed and said the same thing. It wasn't me, couldn't be me. It's everybody else around me, right? So then you fast forward a couple years, and then my father gets ill. Thought it was like another heart attack. And I remember running into my mom's bedroom with him, and there was blood everywhere, and he had a pulmonary embolism. My mom calls 911, and I remember like lifting him up. And by no means am I like a small guy. I'm a fairly good sized dude. And I remember seeing my father limp, almost lifeless, and I heave him up, and it was the heaviest lift I had ever performed in my life. Just dead weight. Roll him over, clear him up, and then EMTs get there. And that's when we found out he had a pulmonary embolism. My father struggled with heart conditions and things like that. So I took him to the ER. We immediately followed. I'm covered in blood and all this stuff, and go in and operate on him. And he never kind of really recovered from that. His Alzheimer's and dementia was like instantaneous. The deterioration was incredibly fast. He refused medication. We were trying to take care of him, my mother and I. I'd stopped working and taking care of my father as best as I could. Long story short, he ends up, finally being called home. And I remember like, he was the first hero I ever had. Keep in mind, he's the reason we made it here. He did everything to ensure that my siblings and my mother and I had what we needed. We never realized we were poor growing up because we didn't really miss necessities. We felt loved, I think, above all else. And so here's my hero. And it gets to the point where he no longer recognizes me. He doesn't recognize his wife. He's combative with us. And I saw him fade away, just deteriorating. And it was just destroying me. Passes away. We lay him to rest. And that was like the catalyst of my spiral. I remember like just feeling this guilt and this like all these things that I had been pushing down all these years, like they just started breaking through. There was a kink in that armor, like that gate that I had somehow subconsciously built. It was just a hairline fracture that just poof, just got burst wide open. The pressure just pushed everything out. I couldn't take the person I saw in the mirror anymore. I hated myself because I had this conflict, and I always had this conflict of like if I'm supposed to go to heaven and be a good person, especially now that my dad is gone and he's in heaven, how am I ever going to see him again with all the horrible things that I've done, with all just, and so I had this conflict in me, and I was like, well, I can't be a good person based on the things that I've done in my life, the things that I've done to others. I think you're able to read between the lines of what I'm saying here. And so I was just like, I'm not a good person. I'm evil. And I didn't like it. And then the guilt of losing Domhart and not being there for him and finding out he committed suicide. And then later, Lance Corporal Witterod, he committed suicide and they found out, and we're just losing more Marines and more people. And there was a span of like in my life within 30 days that I attended 6 funerals for people either overdosing on drugs, alcohol, drinking themselves literally to failure, their body failing them, and losing high school friends, service members. I attended 6 funerals in a span of 30 days. And I remember having this feeling inside of like, death's coming for you. And it's taking the people around you, but it's looking for you. And so I remember being like, well, I'm not hiding and I'm not scared. And so rather than run from death, I'm going to go out on my terms and I'm going to meet death head on. And I'm going to go out the way that I want to go out. By this point in my life, my sole purpose in life was to wake up, drink myself to oblivion, do obscene amounts of cocaine to like raise me up, and then just go out and fight random people just because I needed to feel something else. Win or lose the fight, I didn't care. I just needed to feel something different, to feel someone hit me in the face, to feel pain. I just needed to feel something other than what I was feeling. And I remember one day I had had enough. And I said, you know what, today is the day that all of this goes away. I have all these felony DUI charges. I'm going to go to jail for the rest of my life. I'm making my mom suffer. You know, I'm just worthless and no good. So if I eliminate myself from this equation, again, being math-based, it's like if I isolate this variable, then I know how to solve the problem. Mathematically, that's what you do with equations. Isolate the variable, figure out what it is, and then finish solving the equation.
Mark your calendars for a night of impact at the Rest and Recover America Gala on Thursday, October 9, 2025, at the stunning Villa Tortorea. Join us for an unforgettable evening, a gala celebrating our first responder community and supporting the efforts of Rest and Recover America as they provide life-changing mental health services to first responders. There will be a dinner, special guest speakers, including our keynote speaker, Hedia Miramati Falco, and a silent auction. Tickets are limited, so don't wait. Secure your spot today at the link in the show notes. Together, with your support, we can directly strengthen and expand our mission to restore well-being and renew capacity to thrive for our first responders. Join us for a night of hope, celebration, and giving back. Get your tickets now.
So I knew that I was like, okay, I need to remove myself from this equation and everything and everyone will be fine. So I get hammered and I remember thinking to myself, well, if I die on my motorcycle, no one will know it's a suicide. They'll just think, what a tragedy, he died in a motorcycle accident. So I get skunk drunk. I consume, large amounts of narcotics to bring me up. I get into a huge fight and I jump on my motorcycle and I'm thinking this is it. And then next thing I know, I'm home. And I remember this wasn't supposed to happen. This was a surefire way. So I know what is a guaranteed way to take care of this problem. So I go into the house and I go to where I know I had something stored away. I open the drawer and it's not there. And so now I'm looking under pillows and I'm looking in different compartments in my room and different places I could have hidden this one thing. And I'm making all this noise and I'm tearing the house apart. And my mom had come out and then she's like, what are you doing? What's going on? And I remember the thought hit me. And then I was like, she took it and she's keeping it from me. She hid it. And so I remember just berating my mother and yelling at her and all these obscenities and these horrible things that I'm saying. because of the condition that I was in, demanding for her to give me my gun back, tearing the house apart. And she's telling me, just go to sleep, just go to sleep. We'll talk about it in the morning. And then I get it. She had taken it, hidden it, because she already saw mother's instinct, I guess, her invisible string tugging at her heart, letting her know, like, this is not going to end well. And so I went and I found it and I picked it up. And I remember I had just a couple days before, maybe a week before, I had just bought brand new cases of ammunition, Winchester 9mm Lugers, and I loaded the magazine up, and because I planned on going to the shooting range. So everything was brand new. My pistol was clean and lubed, because that's what Marines do. We never have weapons that aren't clean and lubed and ready to go at a moment's notice. And I remember I racked it and I put it to the side of my head and I pulled the trigger and I heard it click, but the round didn't go off. And it was at this moment that I had this just overwhelming, just flood of emotions, just this overwhelming flood of emotions of like, I can't do anything right. Like, I couldn't even take my own life the right way. Like, I couldn't even do this right. How am I going to do anything else right? And I remember crying and apologizing to my mom. And I remember apologizing to Dom Hart, apologizing to my dad, apologizing to everyone but myself. And I remember, like, I had this moment where, like, now I'm talking to God. He's talking to me. And he's just like, no. And I remember, like, well, then what? What is it? Because you clearly don't want me to die. Even when I tried, you're not letting me die. You're not letting me rest. But I can't keep going this way. So whatever it is that you have in store for me, like, we need to do this, and we need to do this now. I can't keep going this way. And you don't want to let me die, then fine. But just tell me what it is that you want from me. Tell me what it is that you need me to do, and I'll do it. But just please don't let me keep living this way anymore. I can't. And I remember telling him, like, God, I can't keep doing this. So whatever it is that you have in store for me, just please, just do it. I don't want this anymore. And so the very next day, I wake up and then I'm like, I need help. I need help, and I don't know where to get it, but I'm going to find it. And I promised my mom I was going to find it. And again, keeping in mind that I had all these felony DUIs, aggravated assault and battery charges, all these things, all these legal things. And I'm like, I'm throwing my life away because I can't stop drinking. And I said, well, let's figure this out. And then one of my aunts who worked in the court system, she says, you need to fight for what's called Veterans Court. And I'm like, what's Veterans Court? And she goes, it's a special law that's in place for you guys, that if you've never had problems before and then you enlisted and served and you got out and now all of a sudden all these problems are happening, well, then it clearly shows something has happened to you. So you don't need prison, you need treatment and help. And so I remember I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. I'll take my licks and whatever the courts do with me, but like, I need help, right? So I go to court and I'm fighting for Veterans Court, and somehow nobody knows what it is. And of course I have a public defender, poor guy. He has everything stacked against him. And then I remember someone was like, just go to the VA, tell them what happened, and just start their rehab program. While the court's like, you're fighting it and everything, just get the program started, especially since you're motivated for the help now. I did that. And as I'm navigating the court system and fighting for the VA, for Veterans Court, and they're denying me, I'm going through the rehab program at the VA. And then I remember there was this one time, and by this point, I'm probably like a year into programming, and the people, right? The prosecutors are still pushing all this stuff on me. And but here's another little tidbit about veterans is we have a hard time. We lose our censorship sometimes. Like we just kind of bypass it. And I thought I was thinking things. Turns out I said it out loud in the middle of courts. I dissociated and I thought I was thinking to myself, because she's like rattling about all these things that I've done. And I'm like, and I'm not proud. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Yeah. And I think the judge was like asking her what the people recommend. And I remember, well, I don't remember, but my public defender told me that there was like this break in silence. And I just blurted out, well, you might as well just give me the death penalty. And like everyone kind of looked over at me, again, dissociated. I had no idea. And my public defender looks at me and he's like, dude. And then he's like, shut up. You're not supposed to talk. And then the judge is like, did you have something to say? And like, now I'm like, nope. Like, no, I guess I'm not supposed to talk. And then he goes, no, you have something to say. Go ahead, say it. Tell me what is it you have to say? And then I said, Your Honor, like, by no means am I denying anything of what the people are saying. I did it. I know I did it. But I'm asking for help. And I said, and if you're going to sentence me, you might as well just make it a death sentence. Like, give me the death sentence and execute it right away. Because look at me. And then you have to understand at the time, I'm brown. I'm tatted. I'm sleeved up. Legs are tatted. And then at the time I was bald. And I told him, Your Honor, look at me. I'm brown. I'm bald. I'm tatted. As soon as you send me to prison, the first questions that they're going to ask me is like, am I a Southsider or am I a Paisa? And they're going to put me to work and I'm going to have to defend myself. And I was like, I'm not going to come out. But I don't want to live the rest of my life that way either. And I said, and Your Honor, I'm a Marine Corps combat veteran. I thrive in chaos. I've been trained to excel in chaos. So if you send me to prison, it's going to be a life sentence. So yeah, make it a death sentence and like finish me off right away. Like I don't want to do that to my family. And I guess compelled him and he asks for a recess and then we come back and the judge says, very well, you make a good point. I'll give you veterans court and I'll send you to programming. But here's the one caveat to this agreement. If you show up late once, if you pop on a drug test once, if I get any negative feedback from your case manager or anyone in the program, any negative thing about you, you're not coming for a second chance. You're not coming for an extension. You're not coming for an, I'm sorry, I'll do better. If you mess up once, you're coming back just for sentencing and you're going to get max sentences on each and every charge. So keep in mind, this is now 6 felony level DUIs because I'm more than double the limit of alcohol, a couple of aggravated assault charges because of the fighting, drunk in public, like all these things. Never resisted arrest though. I know it's a weird brag, but I never resisted arrest. But now we're talking max sentences on all these charges. And my public defender's kind of like, dude, that's like, really think about it. And I said, nope, all I need is one shot. That's all I need. Give me one shot and we'll do this. So gavel goes, go away. Good luck. For the next 2 years, I'm going to treatment. I'm getting help with being clean, staying clean, sober, learning how to do all these things. And then I start getting help for my PTSD, like all the trauma, not just from deployments, but things that I learned, unresolved childhood trauma and all these other things that I experienced throughout my life that I just kind of like, you know how Latinos are, especially men, just push it down. Just have a beer, you'll be fine, right? So as I'm doing the work and I'm navigating it and I'm talking to case managers, I'm talking to therapists and I'm telling them like, listen, by no means is this any discredit to you, but you have to understand, like, you can't relate to us. Groups are incredibly powerful and we have all these moments and breakthroughs in groups, but you struggle with us individually because you haven't even put on a pair of our boots, let alone walk the mile in our shoes. And that's nothing against you. It's just the way that it is. I'm sorry. So when I finished treatment, I remember talking to them and saying, what is it that I need to do your job? And he was kind of like offended. He's like, you want my job? I said, no, I don't want particularly your job, but I need to do this because veterans need to see that themselves in someone that's providing them treatment. So I need to get your job or something along your lines to really drive this message home. So he's like, you need a master's degree in social work and this, that, and the other. And I said, okay, I'll do that. I'll be back. And I remember I told him, I'm coming back. And right out of there, I went right back and I applied to get right back into school. And I mean, I hit the ground running. I got an associate's, immediately applied to an undergrad program, knocked out a bachelor's degree in like a year and a half just because I kept front loading and taking extra classes. Remember, I was taking like 15, 16 units a semester. The school had to like sign off allowing me to take these extra courses because I was like, I don't have any time to waste. I need to make up for lost time. Finished my undergrad, applied for a graduate program, got accepted to a Master's of Science degree in counseling with the option of rehabilitations counseling and specifically pursuing my licensure as a licensed professional clinical counselor. The reason that I went that route is because in rehabilitations counseling, it's one of the few degrees and titles where you are qualified to literally sit in on cases, workman's comp cases, and things like that, and be like, this is what has happened to this person. This is what they need. This is how we can meet them halfway, or if not, like put them in another, like train them and laterally move them to another field or some other line of work that will be gainful for them and rewarding and reinstill their independence. But I remember in Virginia, this is where you'll know that this has been my whole thesis. I remember when I was going to school and we were talking about these mental health issues, PTSD, my top three, PTSD number one, anxiety, the multiple scales of anxiety disorder and depression. And I remember when we finally started covering them, I told myself, you have to unequivocally and undoubtedly know this front to back, top to bottom, because what you are going to do is you're going to teach it to your people so that they understand what it is that has happened to them. Explain PTSD and how it has physiologically altered them, what it has done to the mind to cause guilt and shame and all these negative thoughts that we have, all these intrusive thoughts. And I said, we are going to reverse engineer what these cumulative traumas have done to people. Because when they can understand what it is that they have endured and been through, then much like myself, you'll be that much more primed and ready to really do the work and successfully undo that damage. There's no cure, but we can undo it and retrograde and understand what it is that has happened and regain our independence. So that's what I did.
There's better than cure.
Correct.
There's healing.
1000%.
There's healing. I've heard this story several times, and every time I hear you tell it, I can hardly breathe. I don't want to miss a thing. But this time, for some reason, you're such a brother and a partner and a collaborator. And you have the heart of a warrior with me. And I feel like God sent me the perfect therapist to rally with us. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a warrior, not just for America, but for humanity. And just for standing with me in these times of unprecedented confusion, chaos, and dis-ease that is just really crippling the heart and mind and the soul of an entire generation. You give me so much hope for humanity, and you're just really such a brother. Thank you so much, Juan. I want to have you back.
Yeah, because we got to talk about
because you have
how we crossed paths. That story is it's got. Can I just say it real quick? How we crossed paths to really bring in.
Well, we're going to say session. We got to discuss it next session.
All right, because that's really the invisible string that pulled me to you. God pulled me to you. I needed to meet you.
Isn't that amazing? I want people to feel hope that there's something so much bigger than all of our pain, than all of our regret, than all of our shame. And he has a name. So I love you, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for hearing me and giving me a chance to share.
We hope listening to this episode has brought you closer to experiencing the freedom of wholeness and healing. If you have questions or comments about today's episode, or for updates about R.E.S.T, please visit our Instagram or Facebook at The Place of R.E.S.T. If you would like more information about Virginia, or to support and join the cause of R.E.S.T, please go to theplaceofrest.com/donate or call 949-289-5935. Thank you for listening to R.E.S.T with Virginia Dixon. We'll see you next week.